we shift focus over to another tense situation, and that is Taiwan. China is all set to close North Taiwan's airspace for what it says are space activities. The closure comes after Beijing completed 3 days of massive war games around Taiwan last week, during which China simulated targeted strikes and practiced a blockade of the island. The no-fly zone does not appear to be linked to the drills, but to a falling object from a satellite launch vehicle. The restrictions will be in place from 9:30 a.m. till 9:57 a.m. on Sunday, which is just 27 minutes. Previously, China had proposed a 2-day closure, which had caused worry in the region, with tensions flaring between China and Taiwan. However, the Chinese Foreign Ministry continued to fake bewilderment on this matter. On Monday night, China announced the end to several days of military drills, which had been launched in retaliation to Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen's meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in the U.S. last week. Now, now these drills have not been as big as those that had followed last year during Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taipei in August last year. Taiwan has said it had earlier spotted 70 warplanes and 11 ships in its surrounding waters. China has notified for a 2-day closure of the airspace. And this is what China has done. There will be a no-fly zone. It's being changed to now 27 minutes amid flaring tensions. China has cited that space activities are the reason for closure of the airspace, and that the closure is linked to Chinese military drills. China is still on guard post the end of these military drills. And with that, let me also bring out some crucial reactions that have poured in soon after China announced the possibility of this no-fly zone near Taiwan.
The no-fly zone is within our air defense identification zone. What you just alluded to can be found in the public information. It is about 85 nautical miles in the north of Taiwan. Everyone knows that in the north, no matter if it's in the direction of Japan and Korea or that of the United States, there are a lot of international fights. Any regular announcements, of course, could impact neighboring countries like Japan, Korea, and so on. Actually, aerospace in this sense means activities related to aviation and space. Judging from the past, of course, you'd best ask China directly, but judging from the public information, it will include missions related to aviation and space, meaning it could be related to anything to satellites and communication. Whether it is really about those, I believe all departments are making investigations.
What will this imposition of a no-fly zone over Taiwan, even though only for 27 minutes, mean for Taiwan? Let me try and quickly bring in Brian Ho, who's the editor of New Bloom magazine. Thank you, Brian, for joining in. Important to just break it down. What will this disruption mean for Taiwan's airspace?
Yeah, so that is the question. Precisely, the situation is somewhat unclear because of mixed messaging from both sides. And so I think it's in China's interest often to be ambiguous about its course of action. For example, the live fire exercises that announced involving coordinated warplanes and naval vessels. After 3 days, those ended. But then after that, just not too long after, announces this attempt at a no-fly zone. But it's actually still very unclear what that means until it takes place or it doesn't take place. Because oftentimes China will frame something as that is not actually true in order to try to intimidate. And so will they actually do that or not? But if they do actually carry out this attempt, it would not be around Taiwan. It would be 85 nautical miles north of Taiwan. But then the attempt is to show then that China has this capacity to have a no-fly zone. This was something that'd be quite dangerous in wartime, for example, because one of the main ways in which Taiwan can ward off a Chinese threat is if it maintains air superiority. That's to say that it maintains control of airspace, and Chinese warplanes do not.
Brian, there's a lot of talk about how Taiwan's politics is divided between the United States and China, because as we know, Tsai was visiting the United States. At the same time, we saw Taiwan's former president in China. His party, the KMT, is in fact known for being very China-centric in its views. So in the upcoming election of next year in Taiwan, will we now witness a battle between the United States and China?
It is possible in that way. It is actually quite interesting because the KMT has suffered in past years because of its pro-China image. This has been an obstacle to it winning elections. And so the current chair, Eric Chu, when he took office as chair, he promised to change the image of the party to make it seem more pro-US, to pivot towards the US. But evidently now that is not the case. the KMT has instead doubled down on ties with China, while also casting doubt on the reliability of the US, throwing into question, for example, whether arms sales from the US to Taiwan will put Taiwan in danger, or whether the US is just trying to steal Taiwan's semiconductor prowess with the semiconductor plant that was built in Arizona, for example. And so it will, in this sense, become a kind of question of which party to vote for based on what you think is best for Taiwan's political stability. Do you lean towards China or do you lean towards the US? And so though that's a bit reductive about the differences between the two parties, that is certainly one dimension of the election between the DPP, which is now closer to the US,
Right.
and the KMT, which is closer to China.